Okay, so yeah, we'll get started now. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Buenas noches. I'll just say this in Spanish quickly. Si hay alguien que prefiere participar en esta reunión en español, por favor añada su nombre al chat y entonces le ponemos, lo vamos a poner en otro salón para poder hablar pues sobre todo esto en español. Cool. Okay, great. So I'll dive into what we'll be doing today. So first, we're going to start with talking about the project team, who we are, how our strategic plan SEPTA Forward sets us up to do these kinds of transformative projects that we'll be talking about today. We'll dive into Reimagining Regional Rail with a quick presentation, and then we'll do some breakout rooms to further the discussion and then kind of wrap up with any Q&A that everyone might have. So I'll start off by introducing myself. I'm Claudia Leaf. I'm the Deputy Project Manager for this project on the SEPTA side. The team on SEPTA is made up by myself, Ryan Judge, the Director of Strategic Planning, and Jody Holton, who's our Chief Planning and Strategy Officer. So just so everyone knows, we'll be using two methods today for polling. It'll be live asking you a question, so it'll pop up and you'll be able to fill out answer the question, and then you can also use the chat function at any point to ask questions or make any comments you want to share. So that's how we'll be doing it. So we'll start off the meeting. We like to start it off like this. We want to ask and get to know you guys a little better. So what SEPTA services do you use at least once a week? So it'll show up on the screen, but we'd also love for you guys to give us a few more details about what routes you ride, at least once a week. So if you want to just put it in the chat or fill out the poll, that'd be awesome. I don't see the poll, so I don't know if we switched it to just chat, but oh, great.
So we have some people who actually ride regional rail. If you want to tell us in the chat where you ride and what you ride for, we'd love to hear about that. Also, where you're going on the high speed line and bus service, and if you're using all of these together or just picking one at a time.
Cool. We have one response. But yeah, so I think as you kind of can see there, we've got a lot of options. SEPTA has a lot of options for how to get around, the region and how to get around from Norristown and the region. So sorry, now I'm just seeing the poll results now. So it looks like a lot of bus riders, a lot of MFL, BSL, NHSL riders, and actually a fair, pretty even amount of regional rail riders as well. So this is a pretty good mix. So yeah, I mean, you can see that Norristown has that multimodal transportation center, and that's something that we're really thinking about a lot in this project. So to kind of dive into how those three modes can really work together. SEPTA is looking and working towards a vision of a transit network that connects people all day, all week, frequently and integratedly between services, so that people can move across the region. That's the goal of all of these projects. So the way that we're organizing this is we're doing this with three projects of significance that touch all SEPTA modes. So it touches buses, rail transit, and regional rail. Rail transit is what you may have heard of as SEPTA Metro. I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go through. So all three of these projects are based on outreach, and the goals are really to operate those operations to meet the changing transit needs that have come up, after the pandemic, and as we've really looked at who our riders are and what SEPTA really is used for. The purpose of all these plans is to make it more useful to more people, to go beyond the 9 to 5 commute and really connect the region as a whole. So I'll kind of go quickly over, Project Metro and Bus Revolution are two other projects of significance. So Project Metro is working to serve more people by unifying the Market Frankfurt line, the Broad Street line, the Norristown high-speed line, and all the trolley routes into a single easy-to-use network with new maps, signage, communications. And the goal is really to make these lines accessible and easy to use no matter who you are or how well you know SEPTA. It's really something that we've heard a lot of feedback about, is that, you know, SEPTA can be really kind of confusing to get around if you don't know it. So that project is really addressing that issue. And so then we're also right now working on Bus Revolution. So buses carry nearly half of SEPTA riders. So bus riders are the backbone of our system. So you know, bus riders tend to be riders who don't always just ride 9-to-5 commutes. It goes beyond that. And so Bus Revolution is responding to those changing patterns and acknowledging that, you know, the backbone of our system are workers who don't work traditional hours and who need the bus for much more than just, you know, commuting to an office job. So the project is going to redesign the bus network to better match how these travel patterns express themselves. And we're going to be simplifying the bus routes, increasing efficiency, and making it faster and more reliable. So if you're interested in that, you're welcome to go to septabusrevolution.com. And I neglected to mention before, planning.septa.org is our planning website where you can find information on Project Metro. So something that we heard in our outreach was that our systems could be better integrated. So it's really important that we think of these processes, these projects, not just in a vacuum. And that's kind of why we're talking about Project Metro and Bus Revolution at this, you know, regional rail focused meeting. But it's really important that we think about them together, and particularly with regional rail, where we've heard that integration is really sort of one of the main sticking points. It makes it so that regional rail riders can't really move around the system in the same way that a rail transit rider might. So Reimagining Regional Rail is our project to create a vision for what regional rail looks like as part of a lifestyle network of frequent, easy to use, integrated services. So we're going to be identifying infrastructure, equipment, so, you know, vehicles like Silverliner 4s or their upgrades, operations, and the policies we need to really get to that system of an integrated lifestyle network. So right now, regional rail is kind of a system that connects suburban areas to parts of Philly and Center City. And it's kind of a commuter service that really works well for a lot of riders. Before the pandemic, we had 132,000 people who rode. So it clearly worked. But as we saw with the pandemic, we saw a drop in ridership, and that ridership isn't necessarily coming back. So we need to look at new ways of serving the community better. So, and one of the big things that I think a lot of people don't always know, and I think that lack of integration hinders, is that regional rail is often some of the fastest ways to get across town or across, you know, the region. But our policies, our infrastructure, our schedules don't really make it easy. So this is really, these are the things at the center of this. So yeah, this project's basically going to address this head on. We're putting everything on the table. Like I mentioned, operations, vehicles, frequency, everything. So, and the point is really to serve as many people as possible. And the way we're doing that is we're not just doing it internally. So you saw the SEPTA team was pretty small. We're working with a team of experts, and I'll let them introduce themselves, and they'll walk through the details of the project, where we're at, and where we could be going, and get your feedback.
Excellent. I'm Christoph Spieler. I'm Director of Planning at Hewitt-Zollars, and I'm the project manager for the consultant team on this project. Also joined here by some other members of the team. We have Teresa Carr from Nelson Nygaard, who's actually the deputy project manager. We have Mario from the Hewitt-Zollars team, and we have Roseanne and multiple members of the Connect the Dots team who will be helping us through this meeting today. What you're seeing today is really the work of a team of experts all working together to figure out what the future of the system looks like. But I figure it's good to ground us by starting with where this system is today. I know a lot of you ride it, but some of you don't. So this is what we have today. It's a system that offers direct one-seat rides to Center City and some other destinations like the airport, University City, and Temple University. From Norristown, trains run to Center City every 20 to 40 minutes at rush hour, about 2 hours, every 2 hours in the middle of the day, evening, and weekends from about 6 a.m. to midnight. That's a fairly typical service pattern for regional rail. On the way from Norristown, you'll stop in Conshohocken, Manayunk, Wissahickon, and it takes about 45 minutes to get to Center City, and then the train stops Fashion District, City Hall, and 30th Street for Amtrak. Most of those trains make every stop along the way, but some of the rush hour trains run express for faster service. Even some of the local trains skip certain stations along the way. Compared to subway or L trains, there's more seats. And that means even at rush hour, most riders can sit down, but there's considerably less room for bikes and wheelchairs. And if you look at the stations, at a lot of stations, you have to walk up steps to board the train because the platforms are down at ground level rather than up at the floor level of the train. And you pay by tapping a SEPTA key card at the station or by paying cash to the conductor, who's also checking those SEPTA key cards on board the train. $5.75 to Center City or $7 if you pay cash. It's interesting to compare this to other SEPTA modes. For example, if you are going from Norristown to Center City, you can make a trip to the Fashion District in 40 minutes on regional rail. If you were riding the Norristown high-speed line and transferring to the MFL, that same trip would take you nearly an hour. So that's almost a 20-minute time savings. And it's a one-seat ride. It's a direct trip, unlike the Norristown high-speed line where you have to transfer. However, if you look at that service midday frequency, only every 2 hours on regional rail, you'll get more frequent service on the Norristown high-speed line. And you'll also pay less on the transit mode, $5.75 for regional rail and $2 if you ride the high-speed line. And moreover, if you're in a wheelchair, you don't have a choice at all. The Norristown station is not accessible for wheelchairs if you ride regional rail, while it is accessible for wheelchairs for all of these other modes. So that's the service we have today. And these are all things that we're thinking about how to make that service better, which brings us to our goals. And I'll have Teresa talk about that.
Thanks, Christoph. So we have 3 goals that we've established for this project, and we have developed those goals with the rider experience in mind and with an outset to establish a vision for how we want regional rail to serve people. And these 3 goals really set the stage for the development of our 3 scenarios, for the evaluation of those scenarios, and we'll move forward into the identification of recommendations for the study. The goals are to increase and improve access to opportunity, to prioritize an intuitive rider experience through a seamless and welcoming system, and to create a reliable, predictable regional rail system that people can trust. So we then built 3 scenarios for how regional rail could adapt and how it could serve more people. And we'll go through these 3 scenarios with you now, and it's also the focus of the breakout room discussion that we'll hold with you in a bit. So these 3 scenarios are called, scenario 1 is called regional coverage, scenario 2 is metro frequency, scenario 3 is all-day speed. Now, each possible scenario is going to serve people in Norristown a little bit differently. Scenario 1, which we call regional coverage, is offering 30-minute all-day service everywhere. That's between the span of service hours of 5 a.m. and 1 a.m. So as you can see on this map, Norristown has trains to Center City that run every 30 minutes all day. Scenario 2, which we call metro frequency, provides a high-frequency SEPTA metro style service in areas where demand is highest. So as you can see on this map, Norristown also has trains to Center City that run every 15 minutes all day, and that's through that hour span of 5 a.m. and 1 a.m. Scenario 3, we call all-day speed. And this scenario is providing all-day express service that is better integrated with Amtrak. Now, in Norristown, we have trains running to Center City every 15 minutes all day. There are connections at 30th Street to an all-day express to Wilmington, Trenton, and Harrisburg. And in addition to those scenarios, we have many aspects of regional rail that could be changed through this planning process. We're looking at the frequency and the span of service. We're looking at the types of service, local and express. We're looking at that relationship to Amtrak and New Jersey Transit. We're looking at local transit connections and infrastructure upgrades, to station improvements, the equipment to run the system, how you pay your fares and how those fares are integrated with other SEPTA modes. We're looking at operations and staffing, rail line extensions and new stations, as well as the business model. How do we pull it all together? Christoph will talk a little bit about implementation.
Yeah, so we think it's important to have a long-term vision. There's a real value in ambition, and we really want to map out what's the best that this network can be. So we are creating a total long-range vision, but it may take decades to put together all of the pieces to get to that long-range vision. And we don't think it makes any sense to ask riders to wait decades to see a more useful system. So we'll also be looking at what the near-term implementation can look like. There's things we can do almost immediately within the next 5 years. There are schedule changes that are possible within the existing infrastructure for more frequency in some cases, and also just for more predictable service. There's fare policy changes we could make now with more integration between regional rail and other SEPTA services. And SEPTA already has some infrastructure projects lined up. As we're planning and designing those projects, we can make provisions for that future service that we're planning. In the medium term, a lot more is possible. We're going to need new equipment. We have trains from the 1970s that make up the bulk of the regional rail fleet. Here's a chance to buy new trains that can serve that future system better. There's also a chance to start rolling out station upgrades and infrastructure upgrades. And as those upgrades are made, those allow more increases in service. So what we might see in this kind of medium-term range is a line-by-line rollout of a vastly improved system. And then in the long range, we do the entire network. So what we're doing here is we're imagining a very different regional rail system, a regional rail system that's easier to understand, a regional rail system that's easier to access, a regional rail system that is better connected to the rest of the SEPTA network, and a regional rail system that's more reliable, a regional rail system that really serves this region better. And to do that, we want to hear what you think, how you use regional rail, how you'd like to use regional rail, and what you think is important to you. And that is the point of these breakout groups. So that's what happens next. We're going to break out into discussion groups, and we'll hear from you about this network. And with that, I think Roseanne will launch us into our groups.
I will open the rooms. Okay, so Christoph, we actually need to join ours because we're hosts.
Okay. So which should I be joining?
One.
Okay. I'm watching everybody come back into the main room here. So we want to thank all of you for spending the time with us today. We have gotten input in a lot of different ways here, but there is really a value to hearing people's individual needs and individual stories. And I know I thoroughly enjoyed our breakout room. I bet it was the best breakout room, but I hope the other breakout room was a good discussion as well.
We were a great breakout room.
This is the third of these meetings. We have one more this Thursday in the city of Chester. We also, for those of you who are interested in the technical part of this, and I think we definitely heard from some of those people today, we have a transit talk coming up next week, which will go into more detail into some of what you saw today, including a lot of our initial evaluation of these scenarios. The consultant teams put a lot of work into looking at how these actually function. So you can join us for that next Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 in a virtual transit talk. Also, you can find a lot more information on the webpage at regionalrailplan.com. And if you go there, you will find a survey. If you have not taken that survey, please do. That's your chance to vote for your favorite scenario and also to give us feedback on all the other parts of this plan. We've gotten thousands of responses already, but we want more. So if you have not gone, please do. And please also point anyone else you know who you think would be interested in this to regionalrailplan.com. And with that, I'll pass it on to Claudia for the final word from SEPTA.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for all coming. This has been a really good meeting, and kind of closing off the phase of community workshops. So please check the links in the chat and stay involved. You can also email planning@septa.org if you have any other extra comments, or put it on our website comment page or comment box. So yeah, thank you.